Do you want a 2-for-1 card idea that is very simple and perfect for using up scraps? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty time and supplies. So let's get making. Today I'm going to use 2 products from scrapbook.com. I want their block outline word dies, and they have a Hello Thanks Celebrate set, and I'll actually be using the thanks today. But I also wanted to point out the Merry Jolly and Ho Ho Ho, where's the Christmas ones, because I think that this will work really well for Christmas cards, and I'm going to be even using a snowflake, but I need thank you cards. And this is going to probably be coming out on American Thanksgiving, so why not take this opportunity to make a thank you card and thank all of you. So I have also the shape dies from scrapbook.com. I think it would also work well with other sort of outline type dies like these from scrapbook.com, these butterflies, but like anything that if you cut it solid, it still looks like whatever it is. And that'll make sense a little bit more, but you could choose any of the snowflakes you wanted. However, generally I suggest something that doesn't have a lot of pieces for you to glue back in. So these butterflies, they just kind of pop right out. And so there's nothing to glue back in. This snowflake that I'm going to use has one little thing to glue back in. Some of the other snowflakes have more areas that you would have to glue back into the shape for it to look like what it's supposed to be. So an outline die is really great for that. Many snowflakes work, so find a snowflake die in your stash. I was able to get this snowflake die set as part of like a bundle at scrapbook.com. They brought back their best live streams of the year. I really wanted these snowflakes, and the time that I purchased it, it worked out to be like $20 for just the snowflake dies or $30 for the whole bundle. And I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. Let's get some extra dies. So check out in the video description all of their deals. And in general, you know, it's a great time to shop. I will, in fact, leave you in the video description a link to like a crafty sales page. So if you're wondering what kind of, if you're watching this in 2023 around Thanksgiving, you can see what kind of deals are out there at scrapbook.com and otherwise. So you're going to take your die and you're going to place it right on your card base. You'll probably want to center it, but it's going to kind of depend on what you choose as your either your large die or your collection of dies. But in general, centering it's going to work well, and you're going to need a piece of pattern paper that is a little bit bigger than your die. So I'm going to be using a 4" by 4" piece of pattern paper, and I'm going to be cutting this 3.5 by 3.5 snowflake out of here. I'm going to suggest you use a die that has some weight to it, or like if I was using the butterflies, I'd use a couple of them. And you're going to punch that die out directly. So one card is going to use the die cut, and then this one is going to use the negative space left by that die cut. And then where the pattern paper, so you're also going to need some pattern paper or cardstock scraps. I said you're going to need a piece of paper that's a little bit bigger. So I have a 4 by 4" piece of pattern paper. What's great about this is if you don't have scraps, like it might even sound to some of you like, that's not a scrap, that's like a really big piece. But I mean, there's plenty of times where I've been left with that with working with a larger piece of paper. This was cut from an 8 by 8 pattern paper pack, and you know, cuts down easily to 4 by 4 with no scraps. So even if you don't have those scraps, you can cut a 4 by 4 piece without making any new scraps. Like you can make enough cards to use them up. And the same thing with 12 by 12 paper, it will cut perfectly into 4 by 4. So I'm going to keep punching this out. I'm trying to be delicate because I really want both the die cut and the negative space to work. And so I don't want to rip anything in the process, but you do whatever works best for you in terms of how you like to get your die cuts out. The more delicate the die cut, so, you know, using a snowflake is going to be kind of delicate, the little bit more time this process is going to take. But once you get this process down, if you wanted to make a stack of holiday cards or thank you cards, you could do that quite easily by just, you know, doing all the die cutting at once, doing all the pulling out at once, etc. So you're going to want to now attach the pattern paper behind this negative space here. or the negative space that was left by the die cut. I really recommend liquid glue for this part of the project because you're going to really want to get into all those little nooks and crannies, and a tape runner is just not going to do that the same way. I do know they make those like dot tape runners where they leave adhesive, you know, in little dots, and so anything that isn't used on the paper gets stuck to your work surface or whatever. But I think liquid glue is a lot easier in these instances. You just kind of got to know the flow of your liquid glue though, so you don't squeeze out too much. I'm actually not, this is the scrapbook.com smart glue, and as a tip, I'm actually not even putting any pressure on it. It's just kind of flowing out. And so that's something you should be aware of as you use it, is if you're used to a glue that you have to squeeze to get it flowing, you might find yourself having a little bit of trouble with this glue, and you might want to try instead just letting it kind of like gravity do the work for you. So then I will take this and center it. Now, the centering doesn't particularly matter for the front of the card, but I think for the inside of the card, that's kind of why I like to do it at the top, so that this looks really neat inside. I have single-sided paper, so I'm only seeing the white, but I honestly think double-sided paper would be really ideal for this, because then when you open the card, you get a pop of color on this side as well. Now, so what makes this a 2-for-1 is that you can then take another 4x4 piece of pattern paper and glue the die cut onto it. And so we have two versions of the card, and you'll want to find the little leftover piece that goes on the inside of the snowflake and glue that down. But if you're wanting to make these cards as a quicker card, definitely limit how much you would have to find of little pieces like that to glue back in. So the other 2-for-1 part, and another scrap thing. Take a scrap of cardstock and or pattern paper. I would pick, if I was going to do pattern paper, I would generally try to pick a pattern paper that was pretty solid, and you die cut your words from scrapbook.com, and that's why I really recommend these block outline words. I will take my scrapbook.com low-tack mint tape here, and I will make it long enough to cover the die completely. This is going to make my second card a lot easier, because first what I'm going to do is pull this outline die off without, as much as possible, disturbing the letters that are in between, because I want those to stay perfectly spaced. And you can use this in general with these dies, even if you're not doing this sort of 2-for-1 look, but just to get them lined up rather than gluing them, like, because, sorry, I'll show you the other way of doing this, is you could take this and you could place it down and then glue all your letters in and then peel it up. I think that's actually a bit trickier because I have a tendency to get my glue kind of accidentally smudged underneath them. So one of my cards is going to get this outline things, and I think it's going to be this one because there's a bit more pattern paper, because this card has a bit more weight. This is where I'm going to pull in my outline, and I'll glue that down. I'll find this little inner piece here as well, and this part I would just eyeball and glue in. Then, because this is a 2-for-1, this part here, we can actually just completely discard. So there's this little leftover bit, and it depends on what letter you choose, but you'll be able to judge whether or not you need any of these. This doesn't have to fit back in there, so we'll just discard that if you do it the other way. And then I'm just gonna glue this down as an example so that you can see how this works. Again, there I was squeezing the glue, and that is just, it was getting more glue down than I would like. It needs to be a little bit more about patience and letting gravity do the work with this particular glue bottle. And it does hold really nicely once you get it down. And it's great for like flocking and those kind of techniques as well. Okay. So now I also have the whole word together. So I can kind of make sure everything is centered. I can use my Altenew mat that I'm working on to do that as well. The first time I went to record this, I actually forgot to hit the record button, but it did work, I promise. So you would have that completely covered with the tape. You left it dry for a few minutes, and then it would just peel right away, and you'd be able to reuse this tape to keep going and make as many of these cards as you wanted. And of course, this will all go much faster for you because you don't have to stop and explain all of the things that you are doing throughout the process. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video, and happy Thanksgiving to all of my American friends.